Hi friends, this video slash podcast is going to be about a conversation that I had with my friend Austin Ross, who is a very talented and very knowledgeable jazz pianist. And he has a lot to say about creativity and the creative process. And this is exactly what I'm after in my conversations about creativity and the creative process. Quick preface, we started on this very broad river of talking about this idea of being inspired by all sorts of different crafts in your own craft. And I've been speaking a lot about this lately, and that's because I think it's a very interesting topic, and I wanted to include him on that discussion. We digressed from this broad river into different streams, and then we progressed. It's different. It's actually more painful. Into a larger stream over in this direction. It was a very fruitful stream. There were fruit floating in the stream, some sort of paradox of nature, I suppose. And this stream was about this idea of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, maybe intentionally, and the value that you can pull out of that, and having to improvise, which of course was only natural that would come along in a conversation with a jazz pianist. The value of putting yourself in these situations that are shifting beneath your feet, and you have to improvise and problem solve on the fly. And then we, other different streams and digressions, and then we came back to the main river, and then we went off again, and it was a lovely conversation, and here it is, and I hope you find it valuable. Hi friends, welcome back to another video slash episode of the James Red Podcast. Today I'm here with my friend Austin Ross. Yes, a lovely jazz pianist and many other things, including you're taking on college at the moment, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Taking on is a great way to describe it.
Taking on head on. So for you, what we were dealing with before this thing started was you leading up to being here, and you were taking care of your college, college obligations. And we were talking on the way, for you on the way home, you were like, I'm talking to you via audio.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and primer our conversation before we get to the actual conversation. Then we went on this freaking crazy rampage. We went into politics. You were talking about debate. This is the essence of our relationship. Is I told my wife in the middle of that conversation, this conversation just a second ago, that we're a bit like a dragster car, where we hit the gas and then we're like full speed. We're just going all sorts of, I guess the analogy breaks down because we're going all sorts of different directions.
Yeah, drag racers typically just go one way.
Yeah, you don't normally want this in a drag racer. Anyway, so one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with Austin for this particular conversation is he is a lovely, thoughtful mind in the world of creativity, very knowledgeable. Every time I speak to him, I experience more of this. He can rattle off many a jazz pianist. He just went to a concert, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did that go?
It was awesome. We saw Brad Mehldau, who, for those of you who don't know, Brad is a personal hero of mine. He's a jazz pianist from Jacksonville, Florida, and he's a stylistic descendant of the great Bill Evans, who was, among other things, the father of the "So What" voicing that Miles Davis famously used for his chords in the album Kind of Blue. And Bill Evans has a very modal, very colorful style and approach to jazz piano, and so Brad Mehldau is kind of like, he's kind of one of Bill Evans's descendants, but he very much has his own voice and his own unique take on things, and his music is very, I don't want to say intellectual, but it's very thoughtful, and it's very, it's really, really cool to see him live. He came to UT Dallas, University of Texas at Dallas, and I'm pretty sure they invited him because I can't imagine him making a stop willingly at UT Dallas, just picking that on his tour. But we got to see him for about 80 minutes. He played, including the encore, and his trio is just ridiculous. They're awesome.
Super good. Super good. See, you guys see what I'm saying? Knowledgeable. He just started rattling off all sorts of things. the words that I don't understand, such as pianist. So, I did very quick sidetrack before we get heavily into this thing. The
Okay.
video side of this, for everyone who's watching, is heavily experimental. It who knows what's going to end up happening. Hopefully, it looks decent. I'm still working out the kinks in that. Hopefully, audio will be clean, which is priority numero one. But anyway, so I'm glad you had a lovely concert. Today I wanted to chat a little bit about this idea. By the way, also another by the way is leading up to this is my analogy, Austin, of what leading up to us meeting today was in terms of getting us to come together, in terms of scheduling.
Yeah.
It was a bit like a concert.
Sure.
You are the pianist. I'm in the crowd. I'm anticipating just with all of my heart. I'm so ready. I'm there. I prayed before I got there. Everything is just in line. I'm ready for things to happen in my life.
Oh,
and somebody comes on the stage and says, Austin is his plane crashed. He's hopping on another plane now, but he's going to be late. And we wait there patiently. And then you get in an Uber. That Uber driver, he doesn't know where he's going. He doesn't understand which side of the road to drive on because he just moved here. And everything's just crazy. It takes you 30 days to get there, but we're waiting patiently for you.
In the audience.
And you get there, right, in the audience. You get there, and it is the best concert ever.
Wow. Well, I don't know if today will be the best concert ever, but I actually had a situation very similar to that happen to me very recently. One of the perks of being at college is my community college is we kind of are in central Dallas area, which is a very big arts district. And so we have a jazz festival or jazz fest every year. And every year, one of the things about having a jazz fest is you have a guest artist come out. And so we invited all the local high school and middle schools to bring out their best jazz bands, and they all get a chance to perform in front of some judges and get clinics from the judges and get feedback. And there was like performer of the band for each band. It was a really, really awesome experience for them. And then we had our guest artist come out, and he performed with Collin College's big band, which is what I'm a part of, our lab band. Well, Friday night is the first night of the Jazz Fest, and it's the faculty concert. So we have one of the student combos perform, and then we have the faculty concert immediately after that. And the faculty concert also features our guest artist. Our guest artist was supposed to fly in on Thursday. His flight from New York was delayed 3 times. He finally leaves New York Friday morning, has a layover in DC, gets his flight delayed like 2 more times. And so he doesn't get to and the concert starts at 7. So he pushed the concert start time to 8 in hopes that he gets there in time. 8 rolls by. He's still in the air. We decide, okay, we're just going to go with it, and we're just going to pad time, right? By the way, I'm playing with a faculty band because the faculty pianist is on a gig somewhere else. He's not available to play with the faculty band. So I'm playing with the faculty band. So we go out on stage after running through all the tunes that our guest artist sent us, and then running through some audibles, which are basically just tunes that you call on the spot. That's why it's called audible. Like on a football field, when someone calls a play, it's an audible. So we had a few audibles ready to go, and
always have your audibles ready to go.
Right. So we're in the middle of the concert. We run through all our solo or all the faculty band only stuff, and then as we're finishing up with that, our guest artist walks out on the stage, and he's like, "Let's go, let's rock." And you would never think that he had been waiting in the airport for 12 straight hours, like that a whole entire day was basically shot just sitting in the airport. And he's a world-class bass trombonist, which is kind of awesome because you don't see a whole lot of bass trombonists being like solo artists as like your guest artist is like the feature. But he shows up, and he had to deal with like all kinds of people. because in airports they want to take your instrument, they want to check it, or it's whatever. It's like, this is a $50,000 bass trombone. You're not taking this from me over my dead body, right? But he walks out there, he puts on a show of our lifetime, and you would never have thought that he had been waiting so long and been on so many flights and having so many flights delayed.
That is the mark of a professional.
Yes, I said, man, it's remarkable how well how much of a performance you gave us, given how tired you must be. And he's like, son, I'm gonna tell you something that someone once told me. A gig is a gig is a gig is a gig is a gig. And I was like, wow, it's pretty good.
That's it's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Sorry to derail your entire.
No. Thing. That was beautiful. There were tons of morsels there. Don't. What was it? What was the first one? Don't. Always have your audibles ready.
Audibles, yes.
And a gig is a gig is a gig is a gig.
Right, is a gig. Right.
And if you're feeling discouraged, just continue that statement out as long as necessary.
Right.
So what I wanted to touch on in terms of the topic of this thing is connecting crafts together in terms of inspiration, which I've been speaking to a lot lately. And I want to hear Austin's viewpoint on this, because I think you probably have a very unique set of takes. I think just from our pre-conversation, we primed ourselves for our unique set of takes for sure. But I am heavily inspired by all sorts of different crafts, even crafts that fall outside of the realm of what we would call traditionally creative. Just made a video with my wife today about her past swimming career. This is a good example of this sort of thing, and her discipline that she pulled from this. I say career; she did it in high school, but she was a fantastic swimmer in her time. But I'm inspired by all sorts. I mean, my time at Starbucks, I learned a lot about efficiency. I'm inspired by police, military. I'm inspired by talented communicators, anybody who is disciplined, masterful musicians, anybody who pursues something difficult and meaningful and is willing to pass through uncomfortable situations. And I think that manifests itself in so many in endless different ways in the world. And I think it may be something that you should not limit. You should not limit yourself to only your craft if you're trying to inspire yourself. There's so much you can learn from people who are more industrious and conscientious and structure driven than you are, especially as a creative. Are you having issues?
Yeah, connectivity. Hello, testing.
I hear you fine.
Okay, let me make sure I'm on the proper bandwidth.
Quite all right.
Yes, I am. Okay.
I'm enjoying looking at your picture.
Nice. My picture from a year ago.
Now, one that we do share to some extent, and I don't know how much you do listen to him, is Jacob Collier. I was talking to you beforehand about.
I hate that guy.
Okay, all right, we'll get to that in a second. Wow, this conversation's really not going to go the way I planned it.
No, I love Jacob Collier. I say I hate him because it's just he's so freaking good. It's just frustrating. It's like
for everybody, he's to call him a jazz pianist is just an incredible understatement. He's a jazz everythingist. He can anything that you can hit or rub and make a sound come out. He is good at that instrument. Not
only is he a singer and a multi-instrumentalist, he can play anything you throw at him. I'm pretty sure he could play like obscure Middle Eastern or Indian instruments, microtonal stuff. He's also a brilliant mind in terms of music theory and how he conceptualizes music, which is really, really cool for someone like me or other, young musicians. He's kind of, even though he's our age, he's almost like older in a sense when it comes to his ability to understand music in terms of I'm not going to go into any jargon, but just the way he conceptualizes it and explains it, and it makes it really easy to understand, but also illuminates a lot of concepts that young musicians might not really be privy to, or might not know that they don't even know.
Well, another thing that he does well, and this is important in the world of photography too, is I am very impressed by his understanding of how to communicate, but both verbally to explain to people, but also how to actually initiate and execute on a really well-rounded understanding of the emotionality of music.
Mm-hmm.
He there's one, I think it's In the Real Early Morning, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a version of that where he played it with an orchestra. I think it was on BBC.
Yeah, the BBC. Yep.
Yeah. So he played it with the orchestra. That song almost brought me to tears.
Yeah.
Because it's so emotionally rich with all sorts of. You feel like you're going through a lifetime with him in the song, and his ability to do that is something very special. In line with his ability, with his technical ability. Right, and both of
that's
the
mark of a good composer is they can tell a story with music.
Yeah, I mean his the way that he works those things together in harmony is really special.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I came across that was super inspiring to me was these long 2-hour live sessions of him taking. We were speaking about this a little beforehand. He will take a fan sent in musical melody, like they'll sing it and they'll just hold out their iPhone and sing it, and then he will take that, put it into his musical. What would you call it? There's a name for it.
Digital audio workstation.
Yeah. The Apple one. So Logic. He'll put it into, I believe it was Logic, and he will proceed to turn the single video into like 250 layers of musical instruments, and half of them being his voice. And what I was so inspired by watching this was, one, the fact that he's not scared to put 250 music tracks and somehow make those sound good together.
Yeah.
But also his speed, and he I think a lot of this comes from his ability that he's grown to loop instruments on stage on the fly. His speed in doing this, and I'm sure he was expediting some of this for the live stream, but his speed, his playfulness, this theory he has about music, which is that you should get all of the ideas out of your head. So it's what I call the creative vomit theory, where it's you get all of your ideas out of your head in front of you, and then he explains it as the courage and conviction to get rid of what doesn't work.
Right.
That's incredibly fascinating. And also his ability to communicate about music within that. I mean, just he'll go on for a while. You'll hear him explaining what's going on, which is fascinating on its own. But near the end, he'll sit down for a second and he'll talk about the emotionality of music, and you're like, you are an amazing genius of a human being.
Yeah.
So that's incredibly inspiring.
Have you seen the video he does?
Oh, which one?
Where he explains harmony on multiple different levels to different people of different ages.
Yes.
So he starts with the preschooler, right, and then he starts in the middle school, high school, college music student, and then professor, and then he goes all the way up to Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
Whom he's friends with. He's just friends with Herbie Hancock.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just one of the greatest jazz pianists ever. He wrote.
They just sit down and have a good old time, like they're sitting in the living room together.
He wrote a half a dozen jazz standards that are in every jazz musician's repertoire ever.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone in the grandma knows it. He's just friends. He's just buds with that guy.
I play drums and I know it. That's a lie. I thought that was fascinating, and I think that his ease in being able to sort through those nuanced thoughts and turn them into something cohesive, he's incredible. And of course he does it with this glorious English accent.
Yes,
that makes everything sound better. But I am curious though, how have a second ago I was speaking to this idea of people who are willing to press through uncomfortable situations. And how important that is. I'm curious how you've been able to grow through uncomfortable situations. Have you had situations that have really pushed you to a
Oh
place
yeah,
that was that
dozens and dozens and dozens of them. My
please tell
goodness,
me about all of them.
all of. Uh, I'm in the middle of something right now. Sorry. um, Uncomfortable situations. But the biggest one and at the
Hey, at
forefront of
least
my
you knew the
mind
person who peeked around the corner. If it was like
is my
some
brother.
sort of robber, then it would be a
Yeah,
really uncomfortable situation.
right.
Ah! You see a
My
samurai sword for some reason.
yeah, my let's see, a good example of an uncomfortable situation that pushed me to grow. And one of the biggest things in music is you just throw yourself into the deep end of the pool. As in jazz, particularly. In
Sure,
classical music,
improvisation.
yes. In classical music, you sit in the room with your instructor and they scream at you in a thick Russian accent until your fingers bleed and you're crying, and then you do that rinse and repeat every day until you're absolutely perfect at everything. In jazz, we're a little bit more sloppy. That's not true. We spend hours in the woodshed, but that's for those of you who are out of the loop. Uh, the jargon is being in the woodshed, or a common shorthand is shedding, and that's just working on whatever it is you're working on musically.
Mm,
Being in the
mm.
shed, shedding.
You know, you see this in musical performances online. You'll
Hmm.
see in the shed or something of this sort. I thought it was just because musician people like to go into the shed in the back
No,
because
no. It's
they have a
because
family inside.
colloquially there used to be like horn players would go out back behind their house to the woodshed to practice. And so that just kind of
Ah,
became the place where musicians go to practice, is the shed. So
oh,
now
that's
like
quaint.
so yeah, so now when you say man, I really got a shed on, kind of, or on all blues, they're saying I really got to work on all blues, this song, this tune. I have to work on that. I have to learn it. I have to be better at it. Anyway, big
Uncomfortable
tangent.
sheds.
Uncomfortable sheds. So, one of the elements of being a musician, and jazz especially, is to throw yourself into the deep end of the pool. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with taking solos. And a solo in jazz means that you improvise over a chord progression, and that can be a short excerpt of a big band piece, or it can be soloing over the entire form of a song, improvising over the entire form of a song, and it's just you. And of course, the other members of the band are backing you up. They're complimenting you,
You're
and
creating a backbone for your improvisation.
right, like the bass player and the drums, they're laying down a beat, and the keys players will typically be playing chords, or it'll be keys or guitar that'll be playing chords that help you know where you are in the form. But ultimately, you have to be willing to just. It doesn't matter how long you spend in the shed. It doesn't matter how long you spend working on your scales or whatever. Ultimately, there has to come a moment of truth where you're like, okay, bite the bullet. I'm gonna have to go in and take a solo. So one of those big moments for me, and I've been very conscientious of this since I began my career as a college jazz musician. Um, but one of the moments of truth for me was actually this concert that I was telling you about, the faculty concert that I played in, because I was prepared to maybe play like the chords to the songs, right? I can read a chord, I can read a cheat sheet of just the chords, like I got that down, right? I can
Right,
comp.
right.
I'm really good at that. What I'm not good at
You're the
is,
chord guy.
yeah, what I'm
Like
not good at
Austin.
is
Oh man, he's the chord guy.
when the guitarist looks at me, he's like, "You want to take the melody?" I'm like, I didn't really practice the melody on this particular tune, actually, Pete. But
I can change up the pattern of the chords.
right. And he's like, I'm like, okay. So we played one of the tunes we played is "A Beautiful Love," and it's a really nice a swing tune, medium swing. And the melody's like do 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 do. It's like really simple scalar melody. It's like a bunch of, there's not a whole lot of skips, but there's a couple instances where I'm like changing the key, or I'm borrowing from another key to go into a different chord or whatever. And so I know this song well enough to play it, but I don't know it well enough to perform it in front of an audience. But yet, this is exactly what I'm doing. Pete's like, take the melody and I'll take it on the way out. And that just means I play the melody on the intro or on the beginning of the song, and then everyone takes a turn soloing, and then after everyone's done soloing, we play the melody one more time, and whoever taking the melody out is the person taking the melody. So I have to play the melody on this song, and then I end up taking a solo for some reason, because in combo situations where it's just a small band and it was just a quartet, it was guitar, bass, drums, piano. So guitar took a solo and I comped for him, then bass took a solo, then drums took a solo, or no, guitar, bass, and the bass player looked at me, and I was like, okay, I'll take one, I guess. But it was
I think that people who are not musicians, I would be curious, because I myself am a musician, and I understand what you're saying in terms of the feeling of what that can create in you when you need to sort of step out a little bit.
Right.
I've never improvised a proper solo of something. I as a drummer, my main goal is to be the backbone, and I'm a very comfortable backbone, and meaning that I can improvise within that very, very well.
Right.
But this idea of like everybody stops and you're supposed to do something interesting,
yes,
is scary stuff. But I get it. I wonder if people who are not musicians and people who participate in, like a lot of people who follow me, photographers, if they don't quite understand what that feels like, and I wonder how much more that idea scares them. It's when you once you can figure out how to get your way around the fear, it is one of the best types of feelings. Just being able to step out a little bit and do something that you feel really good about. And a little bit of improvisation, you come out on the end of that, and it's the greatest feeling ever. It's so exhilarating to try to navigate through that treacherous landscape where you don't have your footing, and you got to figure out how to problem solve really quickly, and that's the whole point. Right. And I think that it's so important to do that in every art form in some way or another, and that every art form offers its own version of that. But carry on.
Yeah, I know you're absolutely right. I guess an analog for those of you who aren't musicians, everyone talks to everyone else. There's no person on the planet who doesn't communicate in some way or another. I think a good analog for being a soloist or taking a solo on a song is giving a speech, right? Everyone on the planet is comfortable talking with their friends, right? But if I were to invite all of your friends to come and sit in a bunch of chairs and then put you on a stage and you have to make up something important to say on the spot, that's the kind of feeling we're dealing with, because jazz improvisation is not just let me like play a bunch of licks. It's not just I'll just make up something that sounds good, right? You're saying something meaningful, not only to your other bandmates, but to your audience. You're trying to make a point without saying words, because music is how we speak without words. We tell stories, we communicate emotions, we express ideas, and we explore concepts that we can't really adequately deal with just the written word.
Yeah.
So I guess a good analog for that is you have to make up something interesting to say and important to say on the spot. And I gathered all of your friends in front of you in a stage. You instantly feel a lot more nervous. There's a lot more pressure than if you're just with a group of your close friends, right? Just talking and sharing your ideas.
Yeah, and another thing very quickly is you feel more nervous, but within that feeling of nervousness, you are more there than you would be.
Yes.
You're more present than you would be if you did not have that to deal with.
Absolutely.
And accessing that as a human is a very important thing.
That's actually a terrific point. I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, you are way more present when you're improvising than you are when you're not. When you're like, because I can just sit back and comp, right?
Yeah.
Comping is just playing chords behind everyone else. Because if you know the form really well, and you should, if you're a jazz musician, you should know the form of whatever song you're playing well enough to just go through it like the back of your hand. You can just sit back and like close your eyes and whatever, and just, you shouldn't close your eyes, by the way. Eye contact is super important, unless you're Stevie Wonder.
Unless your band's not going to do anything different than what you guys practiced
That's
directly,
dumb.
which is
That's dumb.
Jazz. I don't think that exists in jazz so much.
Well, the horn players kind of do their own thing, but the rhythm section, we need to kind of be on the same page. I need to be able to look at my drummer in the eye, look at my bass player in the eye, look at my guitarist in the eye, and know where we are and what we're doing. Because, for instance, if we go from a 4 feel to a 2 feel, so instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1, 2, 1, 2. I need to communicate with my drummer, and he needs to and my bass player, because the bass player really keeps time. They need to look at me and let me know that's what's going on. We all need to be looking at each other, and then I'm like, okay, now we're on the same page. And of course, that happens with your ear too. But making that eye contact is super important, so that we're all following each other, and we all like have that recognition of like, I'm with you, I see you, I know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
huge rabbit trail.
I like it.
The uncomfortable thing.
Have your audibles. Keep your eyes open. A gig is a gig is a gig is a gig is a gig.
Is a gig.
Gucci gang. Oh God.
Gucci gang. So this uncomfortable situation I wasn't truly uncomfortable being on stage. I could take the melody. It was embarrassing that I didn't know it. I felt dumb. I was like, why don't I know this melody as well as I should? And I got through it well enough. And I took a pretty okay solo. It was meh. And then the other thing is, and then we got through those 2 tunes, and then Ron, our guest artist, walks out, and we start playing some of his tunes. And the first tune of his was really cool. It was a blues with a bridge, with a B section. And blues, for those of you who don't know, is a chord progression. The blues is 1 4 1 4 5 4 1 of whatever key you're in. Right.
I know what that means.
Okay, so chords, right?
Chords. I do know what chords are.
Yeah, you know what a scale is?
I know what a scale is.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right, those are...
Sure.
Do, fa, those chords. If I made a chord out of every note in the scale, going from do to fa, back to do to fa, to do to fa, to so to fa to do, that's the blues.
Okay.
In a nutshell. There's more to it, but that's the gist of it. I feel like I'm spending so much time explaining things just to tell a story.
I like
it. Which is why I'm not one of those great communicators you mentioned in your
No. Listen, your ability to break down those concepts is very, very, very important, and it does not go unnoticed.
Okay. So blues with a B section means that there's a chorus there in between every time we run through the 1 4 1 4 5 4 1.
Okay.
So there's another set of chords that we do. It's really, really fun tune, really fast. It's like upbeat. And then we play, and then so that one he had sent us beforehand, and he sent us like a list of songs that he might call at any given point in the concert that we might play. And so one of the ones that he didn't send us was the one he ended up calling. And he's like, I'm going to slow it down for y'all. We're going to open up the dance floor. And it's a theater, so there's no floor on which to dance. And so there's people laughing in the audience.
I like this guy, though.
Yeah, I do. He's awesome. He's like, you know who you are. And everyone laughs some more. But he was kind of serious, because jazz music is ultimately about being able to dance, right?
I want to go back to, I guess I suppose it would be maybe the 50s or so when you go to these clubs and you see these people dancing. And, they're dancing. They got the dresses on. They're all,
30s all the way through the 50s. Swing kind of became a big thing.
Well, and all the clubs nowadays, the clothing is a little less, let's say, elegant. But I feel like back then it was very eloquent. expression.
Swing was super scandalous.
Okay.
The older generations thought it was
But when you say scandalous, do you mean 1930s scandalous or
yes.
2018 scandalous?
No,
because I just watched Cardi B at Coachella.
Yes,
and that was if that happened in the 1930s, people would be running around stabbing each other.
Mm-hmm.
But carry on. 1930s scandalous.
They thought it was super sexually provocative. Just moving around so fast and swinging each other around and jumping.
All the gyrations.
All the gyrations. Exactly. It's too much. It's unchristian, right? Nowadays, Christian homeschool co-ops teach swing dancing as a class, so it's like,
how funny.
Anyway, but he didn't call a swing tune. He called a ballad, really slow, called "My Foolish Heart," and he said, "Everyone, pull out your real books." And the real book is a big book of songs that everyone should know. That's a jazz musician, and no one memorizes the real book, but it's kind of like a jazz musician's toolbox.
The real book. I like
the real book, because there are fake books, right, that help you fake a performance, and so there was a bunch of them made that were really low quality, and someone was like, I'm gonna make one that's the real one, the real book. Stupid. Anyway, he's like, everyone get out your real books. And he was kind of talking to the audience, but he was talking to the audience, talking to the band, like being funny. And so I take that super seriously. I'm like, oh no, he's about to call a tune I don't know. So I pull up my real book. I was like flipping through the pages, and it's on my iPad. I'm using the real book on my iPad.
All the musicians on stage are panicking.
No, these guys are pros. They're all faculty, so they will take anything you can throw at them. Legit, they can play anything you tell them. Me, I'm an amateur, so he's like counting us off, and I still don't know. He's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and I don't know what the song is. And at the very last second, he's got his bass trombone in his hand. He leans over to me. He says, "Young man, My Foolish Heart in B flat." I'm like, okay. Sorry, like flipping through the pages as fast as I can. I pull up my keyword search. I type it in. I'm like, my hands are shaking. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening?
So, can I stop you really quick?
Yes.
What was the value of that pressure in that moment for you?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay. Carry on.
So he's already started the tune, right? And so I pull up My Foolish Heart, and it pulls up the index, right? And there's two songs called My, and that start with F. And so I tap on My Foolish Heart, and it takes me to this chart. I'm like, okay, great, I know where we are. And I start playing chords, and they don't sound right. And I'm like, this does not sound anything like what he's playing. So I kind of lay off for a bit, and I just wait. And I'm looking at the top of the tune, and I'm like, okay, so there's an internal repeat here. So he's going to come back to this section at some point. And when he does, I'll jump back in. How long did
this situation go on for before you sorted things out?
It felt like an eternity.
Okay. All right.
But in reality, this was about 10 seconds of real time.
That's live music for you.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and it's like, okay, there was a repeat, and I'm jumping back in, and it still feels wrong. And I'm like, these chords are not right. They wrote this in the wrong key. And so I'm like, okay, how do I transpose? I'm doing all kinds of problem solving in my head. I'm like, how do I transpose the key? How do I change the key to be the right key? Am I playing the right note? Some of these notes sound right. Some of these chords sound right. Some of them don't. And so I'm like really struggling with this.
This is when you were supposed to use the force.
Right. So yeah, use the force. Take off your navigating computer. Luke, you turn off your computer.
Or you can access pain, because this was blues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you could have accessed previous pain in your life, and you would have found the right chords.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through your turmoil.
Definitely how music works. I just play what I hear. Just play what sounds good.
Yeah.
So
why did you leave me, Dad? It works.
I am panicking right now. I'm sweaty under my armpits. My face is bright red. I guarantee you it's bright red. And I'm sitting there in a huff. And he gets through the form. He's a singer too, if you didn't know, and he's a phenomenal singer. And so he gets through the form. He finishes singing, and he pulls up his bass trombone and he takes his solo on his bass trombone. I'm like, great, okay. He's starting a new section again. I can jump in again. Nothing is working. I'm like, I eventually just sit out. I'm like, dear Lord Jesus,
I give up.
so send me a sign that I'm doing something right. You know, like, like, give me the chord. Just tell my fingers what Jesus, take the wheel. Right, is basically what's happening. And I lay out. I know Pete, my guitarist, he's got the chords, so I'm not worried that that the song is going to go off the rails. I'm just worried that I'm drawing attention to myself and embarrassing myself in front of this audience of people who are trying to enjoy this world-class New York jazz musician do his thing, right? I feel like they're saying, who the hell invited this guy to play piano? Like,
get that white boy off stage.
Get him off the stage, right? So eventually I look up again. I'm just like closing my eyes. I'm like, please be over. Please, the song just end. And I look up and I realize the chart I was looking at was not My Foolish Heart in B flat at all.
Okay.
The chart I was looking at was My Funny Valentine in C minor.
Ah. Yeah, those I bet that didn't work together.
So when I clicked on My Foolish Heart, my fat finger was inaccurate, and it took me to one page over. So I flipped back to the other page.
See, this is why we need physical dials and buttons in music.
Right.
This is the downfall of the digital screen. And I want you guys to take anything away from this this conversation tonight, as whatever art form you take on, you need physical dials, and you need to fight for it, and you need to petition Congress to make sure physical dials stay as a facet of your art form.
Because when the government tries to make something happen, it always works out exactly as intended every time.
Oh, and well, I go to the DMV every couple of days just to bring up my spirits, so
just to enjoy how efficient and fast it is.
Yes. Right. It's a wonderful experience. Lovely, lovely quick service. They have lollipops at the counter, and everybody looks very attractive.
Right. Anyway.
So you died on stage.
Yes, very. So, and the story isn't even half over yet. Is the horrible thing. So right as I jump in, I'm like, okay, I got the right chart at least. And I still haven't figured out where in the form we are. And I'm scanning this new chart that I'm learning towards the end of the song. And right as I feel like, okay, I think I know where we are, song ends. And I just kind of play the tinkly chord at the end.
You nailed that last chord, though.
Yeah, I did.
I'll ask again, what was the value of that pressure in that situation for you? What did you learn from that?
Okay, well, there's another story that kind of ties into what I'm trying to say with this.
Oh, okay.
There's two instances in the same event, the same concert.
Okay, okay. I will ask him in a minute.
Yeah,
how he learned.
We'll get back to that
pressure.
for sure.
Carry on.
So I felt horrible coming off of that tune. It was abysmal, and I just was like ready to die on the stage right at that moment. I was just like, strike me down, Lord. Just take me home.
You start hitting your head on the piano.
Almost. That would have drawn more attention to myself, which I didn't want. I wanted to melt. I wanted to disappear.
Sorry, have you seen the video of the drummer? It was a drummer in an orchestra. He did a solo.
Mm-hmm.
It was a young Asian boy, did a solo. The solo was mediocre, but he was passionate and he was doing his best, but you could tell he was nervous. He finishes the solo, and a couple seconds later, kind of falls back into the pocket, and everything had kind of dropped down low at that point. The shot is on him. He throws up. He vomits
Oh, no.
in front of everybody.
Oh no.
And you could tell how he was feeling by how he looked. Like this was the worst day of his entire life. And what's weird to me is that he experienced this after. Like I can totally understand experiencing the uncomfortability beforehand and having to deal with that, and then going on stage and once you get into it, you're normally good. You know, you figure it out. Even though it's uncomfortable, maybe you miss something, whatever. You're in the moment. This idea that you do that and you're so affected by what just happened that you vomit on the floor I don't understand it. But
I get it completely.
Okay. The poor kid vomits and then goes, I gotta finish. So he comes back in and starts playing the beat again.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
It was one of the most uncomfortable videos I've ever seen in my life. I would absolutely encourage you to not go watch it.
No, your description is apt enough, I think.
It was very, very uncomfortable. What's crazy though is it doesn't. You know how they'll normally clickbait it.
Mhm.
I don't think it said anything about the vomit in the description. I think I was looking up bad drum solos, and so the drum solo happens. I'm going, oh man,
That's not that bad.
That was the story, and I was like, yeah, he could have done better, but it happens. He'll be fine. All of a sudden. And it was so surprising. Anyway, okay, carry on. Your story of overcoming death.
Yes. So he calls another tune, and this is a tune that we did rehearse. And I'm like, perfect. Okay, I got this one. Right? And I'm starting to feel back in the groove again, because I'm like playing chords again that I know. Right? I'm not worried about, am I on the wrong chart? And we're playing this tune, and he takes two solos, or two choruses, which is just two run-throughs of the form of solo. And then, or no, he calls on Pete, our guitarist, to take a solo. Then he takes a solo, and then on the very last note of his solo, and I'm enamored. By the way, I'm just watching him and just totally in awe, because this guy is just incredible on so many levels. First of all, the technical ability on the trombone. He can play every note crystal clear, and the trombone has the slide.
Sure.
It's a slide, so you don't have like frets or valves or pads that make distinct individual notes. But he's making those notes crystal clear, which is remarkable on its own. And then he's doing what's called multiphonics, which is where he's singing through the trombone while playing the trombone, so it has two notes being played through the trombone at once.
What?
Yes. And he did that multiple times. And when the first time I heard him do that, I was like, what is this?
What is going? Am I in space?
Yes. Yeah, literally. So
I hate to go another direction, but there's a Snarky Puppy who is another wonderful ensemble of beautiful. I think they're classified as a fusion band, but very jazzy. They had the wonderful
fusion is jazz, by the way.
Okay.
Despite what Wynton Marsalis will tell you.
Okay. So the beautiful collection of incredibly talented people. They will get together with guests.
Layla Hathaway.
Yes, so at the end she sings this note. She accesses a second set of vocal cords and like sings two notes at the same time. It's ridiculous. It's incredible. I don't understand how it worked, but I love
throat singing.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the beautiful things about music, and specifically you see this in jazz, and it's lovely, and it's this beautiful communal thing, is when somebody does something really special and everybody else just starts screaming. It's like, it's the sort of the gross factor. Oh, that was dirty.
Yes.
Right? And I love those moments. It makes your face scrunch up. You're like, oh my gosh, that was filthy.
Yes.
And that's a really special thing, and I think it has a lot to do with the flow state, which is another important thing, and
flow state,
all sorts of art.
Very hard to access for me.
Yes, because you sort of have to go beyond your own technical. You have to get through your technical brain, which is trying to sort out problems on the fly. You have to
Yes.
learn how to deal with that technical brain while focusing on trying to find that flow state and feeling comfortable enough to find. It's a crazy art in itself, but it's important and it's useful to be there. But we can more flow state. I want to finish your story.
Well, I'll tell you where I didn't find my flow state.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there enamored with Ron's solo, multiphonics and all, and I'm just sitting there playing keys, and he turns to me, and with the last note, he goes, bonk, right in my face. You know what that means? He wants me to take a solo.
Okay. So they communicate with the instruments in jazz.
Well, I mean, when someone looks at you when they're done with their solo, that means it's your turn.
Ah.
And so he just made it really obvious to the audience so that I could not shrug it off.
He wanted to push you to the next level, man.
Yes.
Did you have a next level?
Bonk. So I take this solo, and it's the worst freaking solo of my entire life. Okay. First of all, I'm self-taught, and I learned piano on an upright. And one of the things you have to know about piano is different pianos have different what is called action, and action is just how hard it is, how heavy the keys are to play.
The difference between a MIDI controller with plastic keys and maybe like a grand piano,
a concert grand piano, right? So an upright piano will typically have very light action. The keys are really easy to depress. It takes no effort at all to play it. By contrast, a concert grand has very heavy keys because concert grands typically are geared for a lot of dynamic range, right? I want to be able to play really soft, and I also want to be able to play really loud. And so
you're actually moving mechanical pieces in the piano by pressing down on the keys as well.
And so the heavier the key is, the more control I have over my dynamic range. Well, I learned on an upright, and so my fingers are used to really light action and not used to really heavy action of a concert grand. And so my fingers are really stiff. And
were you on that sort of? You had heavy action on that one?
It was a concert grand.
I see.
One of the perks of being at my college is that we're a Steinway school, and Steinway is one of the premier grand piano manufacturers of the world. Manufactured and handmade in America. And so if they decide to sponsor your school, that's a really big deal because that means that they give you a bunch of pianos. They just give the school the pianos. And
that's fantastic.
That means that they sponsor your school. So all the piano technicians come from them, all the tuning of the piano, all the maintenance, all replacement parts, they handle all of that for as long as they're your sponsor. So it's really cool.
That's an incredible opportunity for young people.
Yeah. And the great thing is I go to a 2-year community college, so it's like we're one of the only 2-year colleges in America that's a Steinway school.
Fantastic.
Really cool. Not really cool when I'm trying to solo on a really fast song and I don't have any practice soloing on that song. So first of all, the keys are heavy, which I can deal with. It's not like it's impossible to play a piano with heavy keys, right? But the thing is, the keys are heavy in tandem with the fact that I'm nervous as all get out because I've never played this song before, except in rehearsal with the band. I don't have my solo chops in order. I haven't analyzed the song at all, really. And I'm trying to impress not only this audience that I don't know, but this guest artist who just showed up like 10 minutes ago, who I have to be on his good. I don't want to be the guy who messed up his concert. So I'm freaking out internally. I'm like screaming on the inside. And I just tear through this solo. And I get through one chorus. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I take a breath, right? And one chorus is like one repeat of this. And I'm getting right to the end of this chorus. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be done with this. We'll go back in the melody. I'll just play chords again. It'll be awesome. My fingers are stiff and awkward. And I'm like,
at this point, you peed your pants.
Right. You know, any semblance of dignity has been thrown out the window at this point. And right as I'm finished with this first chorus, Ron's like, all right, one more.
All right.
One more. So I take an even worse chorus of soloing.
It's brutal, man.
Brutal. I had my butt handed to me on a silver platter. Was what
Yeah.
happened there. And so the value of that lesson, or
Hey,
of that
Austin,
experience.
what's the value of that experience?
Yes. So the value I learned there was to keep playing at all times. And you'll, if you go to music school, you'll hear this repeated over and over again. Loud and proud, wrong and strong, right? Doesn't matter if you're playing the wrong notes. If you're strong about it and you're confident in it, you'll be good to go. Even if you're playing the wrong notes, people will be less likely to second guess you if you're confident about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But to persevere through that experience, first when we were done, Ron told me, he was like, "Man, you didn't suck," is what he said. He said you played well.
I can imagine that meant so much to you at that
It did
point.
mean, well, coming from him, for what I learned of him over the next day, that's a huge compliment. But he said I played well, and he said lesser pianists would have let it get away from them. They would have stopped playing. They would have quit, and they would have like not, they lost control, and you didn't. You continued to play, and that was really good. You did well. I was like,
yeah.
wow.
That's beautiful. I think those are the moments in life when you can learn very special things that you can't learn in other moments.
Right.
I also think that one of the valuable things that you probably experienced there is you learned 12 things about yourself that you will never forget are your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Until you sort through those weaknesses and make them your strengths, it is burned into your brain.
Yeah.
In other words, the mistake taught you in a much more intense and dramatic and yes, painful but meaningful way about your mistakes, and it also taught you all sorts of nuances that maybe you don't understand about what you need to do better.
Right.
So through that experience, and so now you hit that same sort of thing in the future. For one, you're going to do better because you're going to go, I've been here before. I'm gonna do what I did last time. There was that thing that worked. There was a lot of things that didn't work, but there was that one thing that worked. I'm gonna do a little bit of that, and then I'm gonna continue to sort of find my way through this, and it's a little less uncomfortable this time. And then you find yourself in positions which I am lucky enough to find myself in certain areas of life. And the reason I know that I find myself in these positions is because of the contrast of I also find myself in the opposite, hitting adulthood, where in areas where I feel a lot less confident. But that contrast helps me understand the areas that I'm confident in. And whenever I go into a situation that is seemingly uncomfortable, let's say it's a group setting or some sort of performative thing or some sort of conversational thing where I have to speak in a way that gives me social anxiety, I access a lot of the sort of I've done this before factor, and it is tremendously easier. I operate better because of that. And not to mention, there is the part of it that's really painful and scary, but if you allow it, there's the part of it that is so fun and rewarding of being in that kind of situation.
Yes.
The adrenaline rush is just unreal.
I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, right.
For
And,
sure.
and so you think beforehand, you're like, if that ever happened to me, I would go home and stab myself with a butter knife that night. But now you're like, I'm so
Brutal.
glad I'm so we have to, it's a kind of a horrible situation, so you have to make it funny, like,
by making it extremely painful.
Well, yeah, I guess. I suppose.
It's the dullest object I can cut myself with.
Where's that? So I forget where I was going with that, butter knife. Oh, nowadays you look back at that experience and go, I'm so glad that happened to me.
Right.
That was amazing. I got to hear I got to hear one of my heroes tell me I didn't suck.
Right.
Which is like this beautiful compliment where it's like like you don't know exactly what it means, but you do know you didn't suck, and that's
Right.
enough, right? so I think there's so much value that you can pull from a situation where you're completely uncomfortable. Everything in you beforehand does not want anything to do with that situation, yet you persevere anyway. I've never found a situation where I decided where it was going to be something that was really uncomfortable to me. I went through with it, and then after that went, gosh, that was horrible. I took nothing from that experience.
Right.
It just doesn't
happen. There's never a time when you persevere through something and you wish, man, I wish I had quit. Right. I wish I quit halfway through. I wish I would have just abandoned that. Right. Absolutely. If it's worthwhile, if it's something that's totally pointless and stupid, yeah, you'll probably wish, like, man, I could have spent my time doing something, meaningful, like learning the guitar or writing an essay or
let's put it this way. If it's something that you voluntarily wanted to partake in and it scares you, but you knew you had to do it, let's put it that way. I'm not so interested in getting more crowns or fillings in my teeth. But I learned a lot from the experience. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But they poked a nerve and that wasn't fun. So I'm going to not do that anymore. But however, if it's something that is like, man, that would be let's put it this way. If it was something that, if you saw yourself on the other side of that and you saw yourself as a successful version of yourself on the other side of that experience, and it makes you happy to think about that, you have to go through with it.
Right.
I
kind of knew beforehand that volunteering to be on the faculty band would kind of kick my butt a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's the faculty band and their bar is way up here and I'm way down here. And one of the things I have is I never want to be the best person at what I am in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So surrounding myself with that level of excellence, with that caliber of musicianship, was good for me, and I knew that. But I knew it was going to be painful. But I didn't know they were going to volunteer me to take a solo on a song that I didn't know.
They should have told me first.
Well, none of the faculty knew. They were like, it was Ron. Ron just kind of showed up and took over the show, which he's the star. He does that. That's his job.
Do you think he was trying to like get you to another? Do you think he was being a guru and he was trying like you were his Padawan and he was trying to get you to a new level?
Said a word to each other, but at this point in time,
yeah.
The only thing he had said to me prior to that point was my foolish heart in B flat.
So, but I wonder if he was looking at you over there and he was like, there's something about that kid. I got to get him to do a solo and fail.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in the inner workings of Ron Wilkins. That man is an enigma.
No one knows what goes on in the inner workings of Ron Wilkins.
He's awesome guy. And later, I redeemed myself. The next night was the big band concert. And I had written down in some of the charts some piano solos that I was supposed to take. Not written down as in I had pre-written a solo to take, but there were parts blocked out that I was taking a solo on. And those of you who follow me at all know that I play melodica.
Hey-o.
Wind instrument that sounds like a harmonica, but it's got a keyboard on it. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, you played the Office theme on it last time. That was pretty exciting.
I did do that, didn't I? Wow,
yeah.
So long ago. My gosh. So Ron really liked that. He was so tickled that I played the melodica. And he was like, you take a melodica solo on every song that you take a piano solo. Instead of the piano solo, take a melodica solo.
All right.
And I was like, You got it, Ron. Because everyone gives me flack. I catch so much flack for being melodica boy in the big band. You have no clue. So him telling me to take the melodica solo on everything was basically him giving the middle finger to everyone and everything.
That's beautiful.
It was so awesome. And I actually took a really, like, after my solos, after that concert, he was like, dude, killing. So he like gave me a fist bump. I was like,
Oh, you upgraded.
mm-hmm.
You didn't
He's
suck.
like, that was a killing solo. I was like, thank you, Ron. Thank you. Honestly. So
wow.
So I kind of
was a good
myself
story. That really paid off.
Yeah.
That was really good. I think that we learned a lot. There was a lot of value there. I think that something that photographers and people who are more solo oriented, solitary types of artists may have trouble accessing is not that it's not there, but maybe that there's not the drive in them to find this thing, is that sort of social accountability that you get with a band. There's such a beautiful feedback loop that happens with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the pieces of advice I'll give to artists who aren't in a a live setting where like painters or photographers or sculptors or people who have their medium is more time asymmetrical, or like you make it and then it's out there versus you're interacting with other artists, is just put yourself out there and force yourself to work to make something, even if you feel like it's not good, and then put it out there. Right? And put it out there where other people see it. Because forcing yourself to continuously put something out kind of has the same effect as being a musician in a setting where you're constantly rehearsing with other musicians and you're constantly playing with other musicians, is working on a schedule where you're putting something out consistently makes it so that you're having to constantly work on yourself to get better, because
they're more diverse.
You're putting in the time to make something very often, and then you're also putting it out there for other people to see and critique. And so it's different from, I have this little side project I've been working on for 47 years. I just keep it in my basement to myself. Would you like to see it?
Which everybody
to
has.
Your house guest, right? Instead, it's like, no, I've put out 10 paintings in the last 10 days or something. That's probably ridiculous. I don't know. I'm not a painter.
I'm sure it can be done.
Probably, but
very minimalist, I'm sure, but I'm sure it can be done.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, put something out on a consistent basis to where you're forcing yourself to be seen by other people.
Yeah.
And just the act of that, not even necessarily the feedback that they'll give you, although that will be very valuable. Even the feedback that seems at first overtly negative and non-constructive, like, oh, that painting sucks or whatever, right? There's something to be gleaned from every perspective in the room, I think. Everyone can teach you something, even if the thing they teach you is, ignore me, I'm an ignorant slob, right?
Yeah. I also think there's value to creating on a routine, period. Whether you put it out, whether you there's this idea in writing that the way that you overcome what people would call writer's block is that you need to sit down for 6 hours in the morning every single day, write all the stuff in your head, good and bad.
Yes.
And sort
even if it's, I can't think of anything to write right now.
Right. And and hopefully you'll find something good within that. But the practice, the creative process is like a train. It takes a lot of energy to get it going.
Right.
To create the momentum. And you access new levels of momentum by practicing that thing.
Yes.
And also it goes back to what the creative vomit method from earlier, that by putting all of these things out in front of you and then having the courage and conviction to sort through them and figure out what's good, that is more in line with the way our brains work as humans than this idea of finding something in your head that you haven't yet communicated.
Yes.
sorting through your brain's a dense place.
Yeah.
And so
Mine in particular.
right. You gotta, and it's very convoluted, and you can't quite understand what. And this is why we
It's
have
like a swamp.
right. This is why we have language in the first place, is to be able to take these vague ideas, these very mushy kind of undefined things in our head, and turn them into something that is a thing that you can hold in your hand.
Right.
Right. And then we can define it. We can say, oh, that's what that is. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
The last thing that I wanted to ask you is, what is the value for you of watching other creators create? And the reason I ask that is because I've come across this epiphany recently, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, that there is tremendous value to literally just watching somebody practice their craft, or even just so for example, if you're looking at if you're thinking about vlogs on the internet, huge trend right now, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
but you get these very creative people who are making these vlogs about their day,
Right.
and there is them practicing that craft, and there's all the crap they do around that in the day, and just watching them make coffee has inherent value. Just watching how they go through their day and problem solve all of the little things. If there's somebody who you're trying to be more like, there's so much value to that. And so I kind of felt like I needed to maybe have a specific meaning and something to communicate in my work. And there's value to that. And I do a lot of that. I'm doing that literally at the moment. But there's also so much value, and this is partly why I do my photo walk videos as well, which are more produced and edited and this sort of thing, is because you get to watch me sort of go through the process of taking on a photographic project, going downtown, finding people to take just that, and how I navigate that. I could give you no specific advice, but you could just watch me do it, and there's value to that. So I'm curious, do you have any creators that you partake in that are very valuable just to watch? Obviously music, this is an easy one.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's a great value to be had in just watching someone create something, or watching someone practice, because the good borrow and the great steal, right? If I see something I like that you do, I'm going to steal it, make it mine.
Violently, with a butter knife.
The butter knife. So, plagiarism is obviously wrong, right? But but to steal something means you take something and you make it your own, right? You don't take it and pass it. I mean, counterfeiting is its own deal, right? I'm passing something off that's not mine as mine.
You're not selling it on eBay, in other words.
But to steal something means I take an idea or a practice of yours, and I make it my own, and then I use it, right, for my own purposes, right? So watching great artists practice or create, there's great value to be had by just stealing. Like, okay, so I'm at my level. I'm at community college jazz piano level, right? Like, this level's -1. It's not even like level 1 yet, right?
Oh, come on. It's at least 1.5.
1.5. Okay, whatever. So
you don't suck.
Right. I don't suck, according to world-class best bass trombonist in the world, Ron Wilkins.
And to be you don't suck, you have to be at least past a 1.
Sure.
But
just watching, artists do things, I can steal things from them and be like, this goal. And being at like level 1, I can ask myself, okay, well, how does a world-class jazz pianist like Eldar Jangarov or Herbie Hancock or Tigran Hamasyan or Hiromi Wahara or Brad Meldau, like, how do they practice, right? Because how they practice is how I want to practice, because how they practice is how they got to where they are now. They're at a whole different level. So at the level they practice is at a completely different level from the level at which I practice, right? And then the other thing is, Um, oh, you wanted to know what artists I watch.
And
There's a
what
couple of
value they bring to you.
yeah. Well, there's a couple different ones. That one of them is a guy named Adam Neely. He's a YouTuber like yourself.
Oh, he's a
Uh,
bassist, right?
Bass player, yeah,
Okay,
and
yeah.
composer. And one of the cool things about Adam is he went to two of the schools that I want to go to. He went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then he went to Manhattan School of Music in New York. And that was really cool. By the way, I lost video.
Oh, do you
I
not?
can't see you.
Oh,
I
you don't
can't see
see
you right
me?
now.
Oh,
No,
weird.
I'm going to keep talking, but
Yeah, I can no
just so
keep
you're
going.
aware.
Yeah, that's strange because I see myself.
Okay.
Weird.
It's probably just a low bandwidth problem then for me.
That's okay. It'll
Maybe
work out in the end. Improv.
improvise, adapt, and overcome. So, Adam Neely, he does not only does he have tremendous insight into the world of music and how we can harness different things and use it to create music, because this whole deal is like, how do I use this to make music that's meaningful to people, right? Which I love. Like, so many people just get so heady that it's all about, like, you know, it's all about the concepts. It's not about the music, right?
Mm.
It's all about the intellectual value. It's like the academic value of the music versus, is it actually musical, right? And
Yeah.
Adam's whole deal
And
is
it's like that is the thing that's directly in front of you as you're as you're learning music is the is it, specifically if you're maybe not so much self-taught
mhm,
is this all of the technicalities, and so that's directly in front of you, so of course you're going to be thinking about that a lot. It's the first
right,
thing, but you have to sort of like push these things out of the way a little bit and say, hold on, why am I making music? What's the meaning?
right. And what am I trying to say with this piece?
Right.
And so Adam's whole deal is like, well, he goes on this like big long thing, and and he uses historical examples. He uses excerpts from academic texts on music, like 20th Century Harmony, which is like apparently the Bible of musical harmony and how to
The
write
real
music,
book, the real,
the real book.
yeah.
And then he brings it all together, and he talks about all these concepts, these crazy concepts, like why we use different tuning techniques, like how the way you tune a piano. It's impossible to actually have a perfectly tuned piano, and the math doesn't work out properly. Video's working again.
Oh, good.
The math just doesn't work out, so you have a perfectly tuned piano. It's always going to be very slightly out of tune. So how we figure out how to make it perfectly, how we make it perfectly out of tune, so everything's equally tempered. And he takes all these concepts that are like so out there, and he's like, so how do I use this to make music? And that's really cool. But on top of that, that's not even the main thing. The main thing is he does these gig vlogs where he does a video of himself doing a gig, and I can just watch him, and he takes like, several hours worth of content and breaks it down into like a 5, 10, 15-minute video that I can just consume and watch, and like, but I can glean a lot from what he's done. It's like, wow, okay, so this is what a gigging musician's life looks like, right?
Mm.
He's on the subway. He's learning his music like on the way to his gigs half the time. He's figuring things out.
Which makes you push harder, right? Like it
Right,
makes you more disciplined. Because you're like,
right.
oh, he's doing that on the subway.
And
I
it's
only
not
do that at my house when it's comfortable.
right, and that's not even his practice time. Like, he has dedicated practice time, and he did a thing where he actually had a 9-hour live stream of his practice routine that I haven't had the chance to sit through and watch the whole thing yet. But
That sounds like gold, though.
yeah, really cool. And he's a bass player, so obviously I can't practice bass on piano. I guess I could practice at the bass end of the piano, but so there's a lot of value there on that channel. And then the other one I wanted to mention, I just eat, sleep, and breathe music, so I'm constantly consuming new music. So just from that standpoint, I'm listening.
Obsession is good. Obsession
Yeah,
is
I'm
a really good
listening
thing.
because why else would I be a musician except for love of music, right? So I'm listening to music all the time.
There's also money, but
If you're in music for the money, you're in the wrong business, friend. Music is not about money at all.
What about Justin Bieber?
He's not a musician.
Uh-oh. Shots fired at Biebs.
He's a singer and a songwriter, and that's all well and dandy.
He can play drums, I think, right?
When was the last time you saw him play drums?
I saw a video from when he like 2011 or something.
Right, when he was a little kid.
He forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on.
So the other, so I just glean value from just listening to music and listening for things I can take from it, right? And then one of the elements of a musician's music is to transcribe, meaning write down what other people have done. So I listen to something I really like. I can then just decide to transcribe that piece of music and take it element by element, piece by piece, instrument by instrument, and write down everything that's happening, and in notated sheet music. And once I've transcribed that, then I can play it. Then I can reverse it. Well, I've reverse engineer it so I can play it myself. And there's a value to be had from that. Mm-hmm. But then the big example that I think was cool was Esperanza Spalding. She's a bass player. She plays upright, and she sings. And she had this thing called Exposure, and it's a project. It's an album that she created in 7 days, and her inspiration was photography, instant exposure photography. So she wanted to create an album like a Fujifilm Instax. A photographer creates a photo.
Right. Yeah.
You take the photo.
She wanted to feel instant.
She wanted the exposure to be on the film. She didn't want it to be super overproduced or edited or everything. She wanted everything to be in the moment,
gotcha. Like very organic,
like an instant, film.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because a photographer can spend days, weeks, months in the studio just tweaking, exposure and lighting and brushing, airbrushing, like different parts of the photo. They can spend all day with that, but and that can create a completed photo. But then a completed photo can also be created just instantly.
Yeah.
With an exposure. And so her idea was, I'm gonna lock me and my band in the studio for 7 days. 7 hours and 77 minutes or something like that.
It's cool.
Not 7 days, 7 hours. Something I know it's impossible to have 77 minutes, but it was
777 seconds, 777 microseconds, nanoseconds.
Right. 7 is the number of perfection, and she liked the symbolism of that in her album. So she locked her and her band in the studio for a week, basically.
Was there food?
Yes,
this is an important question.
They took naps, they slept. They ate, they used the restroom, all that good stuff.
Thank God. I'm glad they didn't die.
Right, they didn't leave the studio, and she created an entire album from scratch. Wrote all the songs, came up with all the ideas, wrote all the lyrics, worked everything out with her band, structure-wise, came up with an album's worth of tracks, mixed, mastered, edited them, and put it all together in 7 days.
That's so good.
Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome.
So, and she live streamed the whole thing on Facebook.
Okay. So that's where the documentation comes in.
Right, and I didn't necessarily watch the whole thing because I heard about it like midway through, and so I only got to see the tail end of it. So I got to see a little bit of her like retaking things, like going back in and re-recording stuff that needed to be re-recorded, and then like post-production stuff. But it's still super valuable to watch an artist create from scratch. And Esperanza's world class. I mean, she's incredible.
Yeah. What's amazing that we have this access to people.
And it's like really awesome that she just put that out there for the world to see. And only 7,777 some people got copies of the album. She only had like a limited number of presses that she did.
Wow.
So I didn't get a chance to buy one, but I'm hoping she releases it digitally. I don't know if there's any chance of that happening. But anyway, it was really, really cool and valuable to watch her create from scratch. And I thought, like, this is really awesome to just see. how she comes up with ideas, how she communicates with her band, how she processes and how she conceptualizes different things. You know, how her band talks to her, different ideas she comes up with, like all of that is just like I'm like a sponge at that point. I'm just there to absorb information.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was really valuable.
That's super awesome. I think that so my example really quickly is that I have many people I follow on a daily basis, and
Uh-huh.
a huge part of what I'm doing when I'm watching YouTube videos all day long is engaging in this thing of watching other people create, and I'm inspired by all sorts of art forms. But one unique experience I just got to have was going to New York City, and we had a bunch of creator friends there, and
Nice.
these are people who are YouTube creators who are very much in the vein of what we're trying to create, me and my wife, and they're wildly successful, especially for their ages. They're like our age and maybe 5 years older, right?
Wow.
And they're financially, they're in terms of their following, they're doing incredible. They're absolutely killing it every day.
Awesome.
They have, two of our friends have an apartment in New York and an office.
Wow.
So just do that math. That's but, and I mean, this is in Manhattan. This, so yeah. So we got to sleep in their office.
Nice.
And that was saved a lot of money. But we got to just kind of go along with these creator friends and experience the energy of their workflow and watch what they're up to and listen to them talk about what they're up to. We just got to watch them and absorb their osmosis of goodness.
Right.
And also just the energy of New York in itself. If you get the chance to go to spend 3 days in New York, it's a really special thing. No matter what.
That's my life goal. Like every day I wake up, the first thought on my mind is, how can I get to New York?
Okay, dude, it's the energy in the streets is amazing, right? You just walk out and there are people running around everywhere. People are doing stuff. Everybody's active. You feel like everybody's trying to accomplish something.
Yes, because that's the way it is in New York. If you're not moving, if you're not living, if you're not doing something, you're out. You're gone. You're done.
Yes. And so I got surrounded by this energy, and this was like take the best YouTube video you've ever watched from sort of a productive and creative motivation perspective, and multiply that by 7,777,000, and you get like a little bit of New York. It was really incredible, and so the good thing is that you can experience a little of this on a daily basis by going on YouTube and all the assorted platforms that offer this, and just absorb that. We absorb it to the point that it gets really dull, but we have to understand how valuable that is. But also you have to put yourself in these really spectacular experiences of often of physicality, where you are where you're going to see an orchestra, you're going to watch some sort of I think of like a Broadway play or something where you this is an art form that you don't think about on a daily basis, but you can go there and go, oh, these people know what they're up to. This is amazing. Right. Go see, your favorite music. I mean, go get around people, buy somebody coffee who inspires you, and let that seep into you. And what you learn from that is it reminds you what would be helpful to your process.
Absolutely.
Harkening back to the Jacob Collier thing from earlier, watching him in his creative process and his speed and his playfulness, which is kind of a big deal in music.
Yes, he's very energetic, very lively.
Yeah, but also it's like he doesn't take anything too seriously. Like he'll run over to the drums and just lay down a quick drum thing, and he's like, oh, that sounds good enough. Whereas I'm like, oh crap, I missed, the snare was like just over the beat, and you have to sort of let go. And so and
also he's good enough to get it perfect on the first try and then joke, it was good enough, and all the drummers are staring like, why are you so much better?
And he'll say things like, basically, I'm not a real drummer. and this sort of thing. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Just, he has an interesting style. But anyway, it is so in my own creative process and everything I'm up to outside of music, watching him engage in that speed and that playfulness made me want to add more of that to my process, which could actually change the route of my life in a sense.
Yeah.
It also reminds you to enjoy the process of art. You watch somebody else do it, you see them, you're not seeing the emotions they're necessarily feeling as they're trying to work through it. Maybe they're a little bit stressed or what. You're watching them and you're just going, they look like they're having a good time. And it reminds you how important it is that you should have that too. And it also reminds you the value of searching for meaning in your work. Because when you're moved by somebody when you're moved by a piece of work, a film, a musical piece, a photograph, which I've had plenty of those. When you're moved in some way emotionally, it reminds you that you should maybe be up to something similar in your own work, and the gap between you and that, which often can be quite big.
In the same vein, I think it's important to immerse yourself in whatever you're doing.
Sure.
Like, for instance, if you're a photographer, look at pictures, look at photographs that you love, find people who inspire you, and just look at what they've done, and just study their paintings, right? Or study their paintings, excuse me. If you're a writer, read books, read essays, read blogs, read writing that makes you inspired, that makes you feel like you're inadequate, and just immerse yourself in that.
Sorry, just very quickly, I'll add that it's important to do that with thoughtful intentionality, because it can become very dull, just the flow of things, like the feed of life.
Right.
And so, like, you have to approach that. You have to be very intentional about finding people who actually offer value to you and engaging with their work in an intentional way.
For sure.
Carry on.
I was actually going to say the opposite, though. Like,
okay, don't do that.
No. Do that. Do that. Be intentional, but also drown yourself in it, right?
Okay, just immerse yourself
submerge yourself in the
pond of inspiration.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you'll start to notice happen is the more you consume, the more like that you'll become, right? Like, I've had multiple people tell me that I play like Brad Mehldau. Like Ron Wilkins, he was listening to me play. I was just noodling around in the practice room, and he was like, Austin, he stopped me. He was like, Austin, do you listen to a lot of Brad Mehldau? I was like, yes. And he's like, I can tell. Now, I've never transcribed anything written by Brad Mehldau. I've never taken any of his songs and deconstructed them. I've never analyzed anything in depth that he's done. But I grew up listening to his records. I've listened to so many hours of Brad Mehldau that it's become internalized inside of me, that I kind of have a piece of Brad's music in my own music. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I play, there's a little mini Brad that's also playing, that's being expressed there, because I've just spent so much time listening.
It's almost worked itself into the soil of your creative process.
Exactly. So in the same vein, you write like how you read, right? What you read. My dad has the saying, "What's down in the well comes up in the bucket," right? You read a bunch of stuff that gets put down in the well, and then when you put something out, that's what's come up in the bucket, right?
Yeah.
You're putting, I mean, the point of that phrase is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put in garbage, you get out garbage. If you put in quality, you get out quality. So don't consume things that are of bad quality, but if you consume things that are of good quality, your work will start to shine, and your work will start to express that too.
Super good. And that's what I love about art, is that both of those things can simultaneously be true at the same time. What I was saying and what you were saying, it's like there's value to both of those sentiments, and figuring out the sort of interplay between them. is what is kind of the point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no clash. There's not a difference. I feel like they're not really mutual exclusive. Like,
Mm.
for instance, as a musician, I can be listening to all sorts of music all the time, right? I can have it playing in the car, when I'm at home, when I'm sleeping, when I'm awake, when I'm eating, when I'm practicing, whatever, right? Actually, it's probably not a good idea to play music while you practice. It's distracting. But I'm constantly playing music. But at the same time, I can have a transcription project that I'm working on. It's a set piece of music that I'm continually listening to, and every day I'm working on transcribing that down and writing it down, right?
Mm.
I can listen to other stuff while I go about my day, but that one piece of music is my intentional study for the moment, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so maybe I don't know, maybe you as a photographer, you have a holy grail photo you want to take. It's
Yeah.
like the photo that's like the money shot, right? Like if you take that photo, your career is made. Like that.
Yeah.
I want my photo to look exactly like that, right? You
Yeah.
have something you want to do, pick that photo and just study it. Study the sight lines, study the composition, study, the shading, the shadows, study the use of angles, study, everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the elements of the photo, color, lighting, white balance, all that.
Mm.
Just and just not all at once, obviously, but like every day you like pick an element and just like really work on that, and maybe try and take photos that emulate each element of that photo. But then at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, that's not the only picture you look at in your life, right?
Right.
You're
Right.
looking at other photos, you're appreciating other photos when you're scrolling through the internet. There's tons of professional photographers. They do everything from work on Twitter to YouTube to blogs to having their own professional art website. You see photos on TV, that kind of thing. You can still appreciate those without having to delve too deep into them. That makes
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it's both. It's like you have this you have this enormous ocean of influence for yourself, and
Right.
then you have these very specific points that are these high points of creative awesomeness
Right.
and meaning. And then you figure out what makes that person, what makes everything about the photo, the person behind it, all of the elements that go into it, what makes that person what it is. Why is
Right.
it so meaningful? And more, I think one of the most important questions you can ask is why is it so emotionally compelling to me, and how did
Hmm.
that person get there?
Right.
Because
That's
that's where it's
that's
at.
that's one of the things I'm doing right now. I discovered recently this piece by Adam Neely called Exigence, and
Okay.
Adam, that man's a freak. I gotta tell you. And I've listened to like his like solo stuff. He does a lot of electronic music that's really, really good. He has this project with this drummer named Sean Crowder called Sungazer, where Sean Crowder will lay down a drum beat and then Adam will just literally program a whole song around the drum beat.
Oh, fun.
So
I like that.
Sean will just record himself playing drums, just whatever he feels like for like 3 or 4 minutes or whatever. And then Adam will come in afterwards, take that recording, and put a bunch of stuff in so it flows like an actual song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, but Adam composed this big band piece. It's actually a multimedia piece because it is a video playing behind the big band the whole time, and there's like electronic music elements of it, but it's mainly for big band
Mm.
called Exigence. And he performed it live. He didn't record it in a studio. He performed it live at like a performance hall.
I love that genres like big band are alive and well.
And it is killing, dude. It's not
Yeah.
only alive and well. This big band piece is so well done. I get full body chills when I listen to it every
Mm.
time. And I've listened to this piece Exigence, and I bought it on Bandcamp. I liked it so much. Like as soon as I heard it on YouTube, I watched the videos on YouTube. I was like, I have to own this. So I bought it on Bandcamp. I downloaded it on my phone, and like every day for the past 5 days, I've played it in my car on the
Mm.
way to school, on the way home from school, when I'm in my headphones. I'll just play it over and over again, And that's kind of like I'm not necessarily transcribing it, but I'm studying it and I'm internalizing it. Like, okay, what is this piece? What is he doing?
Yeah.
Why is it so good? Right.
Yeah. 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 And it's interesting. You can take it from a very micro level and pay attention to all the nuances that go into making up this beautiful work of art. And you can also look at it from a macro emotional perspective, meaning, okay, so one of my favorite movies of all time is, and I don't know if this is as a guy with a filmmaker background, I don't know if this is supposed to be one of my favorite movies, but quite frankly, I don't care. But the Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith
Okay. Never
is,
saw that, but I've always
oh my
wanted to.
gosh, it's the whole movie's about the American dream. It's him starting at a place where he's very poor and dealing with and living in San Francisco. He has his son. They hit very low point. You know, he starts out, I think he's in an apartment, maybe loses that, can't pay rent. They end up living in a subway station for a night. I mean, just like horrible circumstances. And this whole time he's working to try to sell some invention or something, and try to get a job and become successful so he can take care of himself and his son.
Right.
The Pursuit of Happiness. And but the acting and the music, everything about this movie comes together so perfectly. And have you ever seen this scene where he's walking, it's Will Smith walking outside in a group of people and he's like clapping and crying like this?
No.
You never seen that? Okay.
No.
Well, there's it's the last scene of the movie. It's right after he got a promotion.
Okay.
Right? And he's been working so hard for this. The whole movie is building up to him getting this promotion. And like the first day he comes into the job interview, he's like, his clothes are all jacked up because they got stolen or something. I don't remember exactly, but you just go through this thing with him. And if you're somebody who lives in America and who is trying to be successful, you've experienced all those feelings that he's feeling, whether you necessarily lived in a subway tunnel or not. You're going through that with him, and you can relate so much. I think maybe before 18 years old, you can't relate so much. But as soon as you go, oh, I got to get a job, and then I got to figure out how I'm going to do this thing where I make money and do the thing that I enjoy and do something that's meaningful, and all the feelings that come with that. All of that is wrapped into his movie, and Will Smith's such a freaking brilliant actor in this.
Yeah, really good.
Best performance. And the music's fantastic, and like, there you can go online right now and look up Pursuit of Happiness ending scene. Every time I watch that scene, I almost cry.
Almost.
Oh, it's like you can feel it, coming up. You just It comes up your body. It is such an emotionally moving movie and scene. Okay, so I'm not necessarily digging into the intricacies of that movie in terms of technicality, because I just really don't care to. I just like actually enjoying that movie for what it is. But I'm so moved by the emotionality, like the emotionality of the movie, that it actually makes me want to go succeed. That's one of the things I love about the movie so much, is like, it makes me want to go punch life in the face. And this is something that comes from a piece of art. And this is to be one of the reasons why I love the movie, is it exemplifies what I'm trying to illustrate when I say, make your art have meaning. Right. This movie moved me to literally possibly take action and change my life. And that's something that's a big deal. And I think that's important to not go through life without thinking about.
Right.
And so I guess the point is that you can enjoy, there are certain works of art that you can sit down and enjoy on a micro level, and there's certain works of art you can enjoy on an emotional level, and take in what that art is trying to tell you, and use the emotions that creates in you to motivate yourself. Because that's how we actually move forward, is not by necessarily intellectualizing things, but by emotional moments.
Yeah, well, James, I'll encourage you to go ahead and study Pursuit of Happiness if it moves you that much, because One of the things is the magic doesn't get lost when you learn how the trick is done, right?
Absolutely, I agree.
Um, when when a magician sees another magician at a very high level do a trick, and they know the basics of magic, they know how sleight of hand works and all that, and they see the magician like do a trick, they can figure it out, right? But the joy of the magic isn't lost, right?
Right.
They're still amazed by the trick, but there's the added enjoyment of, oh, you clever bastard, right?
Yeah.
You see that like that was that it's the musician thing of, oh, that was dirty, right? Like as a musician, I am deeply emotionally impacted by great works of music, but at the same time, it doesn't ruin the experience for me to know what a one chord is.
Right.
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 To know how, what root motion is, or to know how he's coordinating the bass, or what kind of chords he's using. Like that doesn't, when I'm thinking about that, it's not ruining the emotional experience. It's not like I'm intellectualizing the song.
Yeah.
It only compounds and adds to the enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
if you study film and you look at it and you watch The Pursuit of Happiness through the lens of what makes this such a great film, I think you'll find that you'll enjoy it that much more, because you're not only moved by the story, right? Which is a powerful story. You're also amazed by how well coordinated the whole team of people who put it together are, and the script, the director, the camera work, the acting, everything like that.
So let me clarify, because I absolutely agree with what you're saying. The way that I look at it is there are two different dimensions of the work of art that can be enjoyed, and you can access both of those if you choose to, and one doesn't take away from the other. But like you have the technical dimension, then you have the emotional dimension, and sort of maybe within that or another dimension you have, we have infinite dimensions. We'll just go there with it. You see how my brain works. So there's the dimension where there's there's the emotional movingness of the work of art, which it was designed to do for you, right? So there are these different dimensions that you can enjoy this work of art from, and sometimes you access this one, sometimes you access this one, but all of them work together. It's okay, like you can access all of them. Now, I actually have looked into the technicalities of the movie. I watched a video the other day of the behind the scenes with the director and Will Smith, how they found each other and their symbiosis, which I think really led into how the movie played out, all of that stuff. And it just which is what you're saying, it just added to the experience, honestly, because I appreciate it more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
for sure.
So with that said, unless you have any other important things that are pressing, I think we're going to wrap it up here. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for coming and being willing to, I guess, put up with the back and forth of us making sure that it works together and this sort of thing. Like
I love it, man.
I'm the kind of person that, like, when these things happen, I'm trying not to inconvenience you. Like, so I think when you
I'm just along for the ride, man. Wherever you want to go, I'm there. You know.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So hopefully we can continue this conversation under another topic with immense digression at a later date.
All right.
Where can they find you?
I have a Twitter. Austin_S_Ross. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on an album or an EP. Oh. So we're gonna go into the studio as soon as I find a studio. But I've got a band together. We've got all the material written out. We're gonna go to the studio pretty soon.
Vinyl only, right?
Only vinyl, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Screw streaming services. No one uses those.
Yeah,
it's vinyl. Vinyl's
we gotta keep vinyl alive.
So I'm not gonna plug my SoundCloud because that's dumb. But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on anchor.fm/jazz. Although I haven't posted in a very long time, just due to scheduling stuff. But I'm hoping to get back into it.
Yeah, for a while now, you're rocking Jazz Corner, which is /jazz, which is amazing. Anchor.fm/jazz.
I secured that URL. That's mine.
Yes, and you had to kill a man with a butter knife. What were you saying?
Anchor changed their whole layout recently. I am so confused by how to do Anchor now. Because every time I add a song onto my station, it creates a whole new episode.
Yeah.
I don't want multiple episodes. I want my one episode to be just a list of songs.
Well, they went hardcore into podcasting world, didn't they?
Yeah, it's like not even music friendly anymore, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
The whole layout is kind of I like the old Anchor, but
anyway. I hope they get their things together, because I think that maybe I haven't been watching it, honestly, since they took me off the homepage. I'm just like, screw you, Anchor, you know. So
they
anyway.
changed the homepage completely. It's gone now.
What? Oh, really? Okay. This is problematic. We need to storm the headquarters. So yeah, he was for a long time. Austin was posting to Jazz Corner, just beautiful jazz music. Introduced me to a couple of artists, and and hopefully you find a further outlet or something even more meaningful and close to your heart.
I'm hoping to start a YouTube channel at some point, probably this summer.
Please do it. Yes. Dude, you just need to sit down and fiddle with your piano and turn it on and talk and add an English accent to everything that you maybe not. All right. Okay. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. I would love to hear your thoughts on what did we talk about? Connecting crafts together and how you've been inspired by other people.
I feel like that wasn't really the topic we talked about today. We kind of wanted to do that, and then the direction it kind of went was more artistic discipline and study of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So if you guys have been artistic disciplined or studied art before,
I so bad. I had so many things I wanted to say about cross-disciplinary inspiration.
Yeah.
Pictures inspiring.
The direction we went was definitely wonderful.
I truly enjoyed it, but I think we definitely need to come back together at some point and do.
Muchly agreed.
Yes.
I think that we should talk again and be more concise and have tasers under our seats for when we digress. He's like already there. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching and or listening.
Peace.